we are bringing real conversations around solutions for boys and young men of color. And before I get into the agenda for today, I want to give a shout out to all of our panelists who participated last week. We had an amazing, amazing conversation on how we can bring solutions to our community. And so with that in mind, I'm super excited about tonight. There's a lot going on in the world, and we have a sense of urgency when it comes to providing solutions for what we're seeing in our society. And to be truthfully honest with you, I'm very, very, very heavy. Right now, it's been a very, very rough week, just emotionally for me, also spiritually for me. So I'm so glad that I have help tonight. And I'm going to bring in our panelists. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to dive in to why we're here. We want to bring solutions. Everybody in the world is talking about black men. This is our time to talk about our own experience. And as I've said the past couple of weeks, this is a real-time conversation. We're not here to suggest that we have all of the answers, but one thing I do know we have is a voice. And so I'm inviting all of my brothers around the world, my sisters, to come in and heal together. I'm also inviting our white allies to learn together on what you should be doing. I believe in bringing solutions to the situation. That's using your voice, your platform, and your power to shift this dynamic. And so with that, I'm going to bring in our first panelist, Dr. Cartman. He's going to come in and introduce himself.
Can to connect with young people, to give what they have to the generation. And so I feel powerful right now in this moment. I just believe that I don't feel like I got to beg nobody for no relief. I in warfare power that we have, and then we can come up with solutions. It ain't got to be eye for eye, but it's got to be to the level, to the degree of the attack. And I believe that we're smart enough, we're capable enough, we got enough talent, resources, creativity to create whatever kind of world we want to create for our boys. And I feel most attuned to that when I'm gathering with my brothers. So I appreciate y'all. I ain't gonna spend a lot of time on the intro, but I just want to say thank you for the platform. Thank you, our brothers, for joining us. And I just want to say I feel very powerful at the start of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know there were some people that said they couldn't hear, but I think the sound should be coming through at this particular moment in time. Please bear with us. We are going live, but again, the message is more important than anything right now. So thank you so much, Dr. Cartman, for joining this discussion. And we're going to be leaning in on your experience to kind of get us through this conversation as well. Next, we have Mr. AMIRIUS Clinton, who's going to come in and introduce himself.
I appreciate that, Mr. Singleton. Do you fellas, can y'all hear me? Good job, good deal. Man, Dr. Cartman, I actually share those same sentiments that you have right now, man, and feeling that power. I feel that same sort of power that you feel. A little bit about me. I'm a community organizer currently. My background isn't community. I've been working in doing community work for about 5 or 6 years now. My background is in political science. I worked as an NAACP president. I worked on congressional campaigns. So I got a real sense of community, and not once, never in my work career have I felt so much discourse that needs to happen right now. And I think I am a young black man, and we work with young black men on a daily. Mr. Singleton knows, and we just talked about this yesterday. I don't know how to answer them when they ask, "What do we do now?" In this sense, you all tell us to obey the law. You tell us that the police got not to do this, not to do that. You tell us to go to school. You tell us to achieve, and you tell us to go off and go to college. But at any moment, our lives can be taken away from us by the folks that are supposed to protect us. So, are we really protected? Why should I really care? And these are, as a black man, these are, I think, the questions that we're starting to struggle with as a whole. And so, once again, I appreciate you, Mr. Singleton, and I appreciate just the space that you're providing right now so that we can talk through these things, so that we can find some level of understanding through it all, and therefore put someone else also in that state of mind. So once again, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I'm ready to deep dive into this conversation.
Thank you so much, brother. Next, we have a young man who's in high school right now. He's going to come in and introduce himself, Aubrey David.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hello? Okay. Hello, my name is Aubrey Davis Jr. I am a graduating senior at Yuri Coma College Prep, and I am also a member of Champs. And now I'm just really grateful for Mr. Singleton adding me into this, because like I feel like I have a lot of thoughts about this subject, and just like everybody else said, we just want to think about the next steps to take in order to get this stuff over with, because it's like every time this goes on, we see the same thing on like riots and stuff, and it's not even stopping it. Like, for example, like in Minnesota, like I never really seen nothing like that, like the riots, like breaking into stores and stuff. But I like that. Except I feel like it should be something else done to fix this situation.
That's a great point.
Thank you so much, brother, for coming in and sharing. And we're going to be hearing from all of our panelists. Next, we have Corey Hardiman.
CEO of Hope Dealers. I am the founder and CEO of Hope Dealers Incorporated. I am very, very grateful to be here this evening. Shout out to Vondell and Champs Mentoring and the work that's going on there. As Brother Davis said before me, he mentioned around the riot. And one of the reasons why I'm excited we on here and we have a variety of age groups. One of the things I would like to inform you of, Brother Davis, is that when so much is going on, pretty much it's not considered a riot, but it's more of rebellion. It's a collective effort of people that's tired of seeing the same thing on and on. And I agree about, burning down stores and things that doesn't bring about a peace. But when a person and a group of people are so tired and they don't know another way to react, they pretty much look at something that'll hurt other people. And one of the things they see is their communities already have a disinvestment So they decide to blow up other things and pretty much go into the streets and advocate in that matter. So excited about this evening and to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much, Brother Corey. We appreciate you for joining this discussion. And of course, we have Dr. Haywood that's going to introduce himself.
Thank you for having me, Vondell. Definitely, I really appreciate this platform that you have. Again, my name is Dr. Haywood, representing Urban Network and founder of just to kind of really be quick and reiterate what else kind of said. Definitely with everything going on, it reminds me of what Martin Luther King said when he stated and said that the riots are the voice of the unheard, right? And so when we think about everything that's taking place right now, so many Black men for years, for decades, have went unheard, right? And went unnoticed. And so here's a time that a lot of people are protesting or they're rioting because they're tired of what's taking place. And I appreciate it because it's not just group, or it's not the old generation talking to the young, or it's not the young generation pointing fingers up and saying, hey, you old guys don't listen, but it's a variety of different backgrounds coming together to have a conversation about how do we kind of really help Black men succeed and how do we continue. Appreciate it. And cut it off.
Thank you so much, brother. And we're going to be dialoguing again about, real solutions that we want to see, that we need to see, that we must see. And part of that has to do with us actually being able to come together, unite as a brotherhood. And so, with that in mind, I'm bringing in one of my college roommates, David MAGEE from New Orleans. He's going to introduce himself.
Can you hear me? Good, man. I just want to thank Vondell for opening this platform up and giving me an opportunity just to really hear and discuss what's going on. It's a lot of things that's impacting us and the way we feel. So I'm really excited about the opportunity. I'm already learning stuff just from the introduction. So this is going to be a good time. But my name is David MAGEE Jr. I am the executive director of a nonprofit organization right outside of New Orleans called HYPE. It's an acronym for Harnessing Youth's Potential and Energy. And I used to work in juvenile court as a case manager in drug court. And I've seen a lot of different things. New Orleans is right up there with Chicago when it comes to murder rate and crime and some of the things. So I dedicated my life to trying to stop some of these things and showing young people that they can do something positive. And I heard someone say earlier about the anger that we're feeling about some of the things that's happening today in Minneapolis and in Central Park. Anger is one of the most powerful emotions that we have. If it is out of control, it can destroy. If it is harnessed and focused, we can use it to build something positive and productive. So we want to take this anger that we feel and harness it, point it in a direction so that we can be, quote, emotions make terrible leaders, but excellent followers. So let's harness it and have our emotions bring us to a good place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for joining this very important conversation. And next, we have my brother from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Shannon Reed.
Brother Vondell, thank you so much for the platform. I just want to say thank you to not only you, but also all of the brothers that are on the panel. I want to say that I affirm all of you and say that I appreciate who you are and your greatness within, not only within your city, but even in our nation. I'm Shannon Reed. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or United Way of Greater Milwaukee and Waukesha County. I do want to make sure that we also acknowledge our ancestors because if not for them, we would not be able to sit in the seat that we are sitting in right now. And so for everyone who has bled, died, and got lynched, for us to be even on this call, I want to make sure that we acknowledge them. That I think about, and I think, a lot of things were talked about is how are we dealing with the grief? I have not watched the video. I don't plan on watching because I don't get a video to tell me, to show me another one of me is dying. So as we talk tonight, grief is a serious thing. And I think about even within the pandemic that we're in right now, I've been in my house 3 months. And I would love to hug a few folks that I know. So I understand in grief and in times and touch one another. We have not touched one another. And I think because of that grief, there's a lot of things that's chaotic. Yes, that's and so one of the things that I get to do today, and I know Brother Haywood talked about the piece from MLK. I decided to go back and read the letter from a Birmingham jail today, just to get some knowledge and to ask myself some questions when he was asking himself, sending this letter out in 1963, and we're still dealing with the same thing in 2020. And so I know that we'll have more discussion. We'll talk about a lot of regarding grief and what we in our city and in our nation. And once again, I'm just happy to be here with you all.
Thank you so much, brother. All right, we want to go ahead and dialogue. And the first thing that I want to discuss is just kind of our overall mental health as a Black community, in particular our Black males. And we have Dr. Cartman, who, as you heard earlier, is in psychology. You know, he deals with this on a day-to-day basis. Doc, how do we address the mental health of these traumatic visuals that we're seeing of Black male bodies and Black women bodies as well? How do we navigate what we're seeing? What's some advice or some things that you've gathered, Dr. Cartman?
Well, the images part is really powerful because I think that there's a mixed bag of, like, we think about the power of imagery. We think about the decision Mamie Till had to make to let her boy be on the cover of the Jet that changed the trajectory of the movement at that time. And so at this point, we're tired of seeing it, but we also recognize that Brother Aubrey wouldn't have got his justice if it was not for that video. He got murdered in February, and he got the attention for it after the passing of the video. So there's this dual responsibility to think about what is the power of images to show America itself, and also protect ourselves from the re-traumatization of it. So for me, the really balance. It's the same thing currently as it is previously. I never teach, historical context, talk about slavery and oppression. I never show a young person the image of a lynching. I've never showed like the whippings and all that. If I'm gonna teach slavery, I'm gonna teach resistance the whole time. I'm gonna say this happened to us, and I'm gonna say we happened back every step of the way. And I'm gonna show images of that. I'm gonna tell stories of that because otherwise you have this shame, this generational shame. Like, man, we've been getting our ass kicked for centuries, and now I want you to be proud of being Black. I ain't got no body evidence to support that. For me, it's about using the trauma and the violence images to show America itself, but to also remind ourselves and our children we've always been powerful and brilliant and Black, and that is still true. If you watch the Minneapolis video 3 times, then watch something that affirms Blackness. Go back and read King, like Brother said. Go back and watch some young people that are doing brilliant things, so that you can tip the scales to end your day with brilliance on your mind and not tragedy in your mind, and you got that kind of power. Like, don't let the news cycle decide what the narrative they want to show for you. We got to take over that. And the images are really powerful because they leave a lasting emotional scar or medicine, depending on how we decide to use it. So it's really about taking the power of your imagery and how it impacts your emotional selves. I think we got more power than we give ourselves credit for.
You know, what's really powerful is that we have the ability, I believe, to, in a lot of ways, heal ourselves. And essentially tonight, this is what we're doing. We're saying we can come together. We can talk about real issues that are impacting our daily lives. And a lot of it you know, is when we talk about generational, when we have kids. Like my 6-year-old son is running around this place right now. He want to be around his father. That spirit of protection that we want to be able to extend this gift to our kids. But then the reality of fear through visuals, again, of these horrific things that are taking place in America. And my thing is, how do we tell our young men, and this is something that I've been struggling with, you know, to follow all of these instructions, to know yourself, to believe in yourself. You get pulled over, do 1, do 2, do 3, and they do all of those, and then it's still in unfavorable results. So what's kind of the thought process you're pushing this younger generation that are seeing this with social media? Is just millions and millions and millions of more just across timelines, these same images.
Yeah. I think it's really important to label the problem as it is. We talk about the coronavirus, for example. We almost forgot we was in the pandemic just because we got our own epidemic that reminded itself over and over again that we still, you know what I'm saying, whether we're sick or not, we still dying. And part of what that means is that what it means for Black people to have higher death rates because of this virus is because we've been calling this pre-existing condition. And what these incidents remind us of is that racism is a pre-existing condition. Systemic oppression, historical trauma, intergenerational violence, pre-existing condition. And what that means for us to teach our children is that when I, as a mental health professional, I'm very clear to describe and diagnose the system as sick. When you see what it means to be successful and healthy and well, you don't automatically imagine a white guy in a suit around a boardroom. I can show you that downtown Chicago is the most crime-ridden neighborhood in the city. Take over the label of what crime looks like, take it out of your face, make an op, what an op is, show you what a systemic opposition is, and describe what it looks like to have a crazy system, crazy leaders. We got a president right now that makes it a lot easier to do so. I can show you, I can diagnose dude, and then talk about the system that protected him, that allowed him to be in that place. And that whole thing is sick. And if you come into my office and say, man, what's wrong with me personally, I immediately go right to nothing's wrong with you. I can tell you what's wrong with the conditions that you were born in. I can tell you what's wrong with the puppeteers that created the mastermind of the environment that created the trauma, and I can call that sick and say that you have symptoms of that larger sickness. But if we want to heal the community, it can't be by telling you to make better decisions or breathe deep, be more mindful. It's not about you, young boy. It's not about you, young girl. It's about the whole thing is broken, and you are fine. And that's the reframe that I think we need to give our young people, that this whole thing is broken. And they have this sense that I'm broken, I'm ashamed, I'm not doing this right. I'm not the version of success and wellness and excellence that the narrative and the TV shows me. We have to take that over, give it its true labels, turn it on its head if we got to, and really put ourselves back in the rightful place of the top of the food chain, which don't mean we dominate nobody. It just means that we know who we are, built on the backs of the ancestors and excellence, that this moment in time, it's 400 years as a sliver of time in the history of what it means to be a human. And that for most of that, we've been proud, Black, excellent, contributing to civilizations. And there's nothing wrong. It's nothing. But now we in this moment. And it's good. We got to talk about it among each moment. These are fleeting, small problems. If we give them the power and talk about them like I'm in this all-powerful kind of being, it reinforces their power. But we just say, nah, these are people with necks. These are people that can't breathe either. If we put it on them. We got that kind of power, but you know what I'm saying, this groveling, this like begging, that kind of position reinforces this sickness that mental health professionals often rely on a system that is embedded in the power structures as they are. We got to disconnect from all of it. Every single one of it, all of our professions, the licenses, the degrees, everything we got is based on a system that is defined by a sickness to perpetuate somebody else's power over ours. And at the root of it, the fundamental nature of it is sick and broken. We got to call it crazy because that's what it is.
Wow. All right. So it's starting to heat up a little bit. And so we want to bring in Mr. Clinton, you know, it's a situation that I've been saying for the past month or so, that we are in a pandemic, but we also in this epidemic. We've been dealing with a lot of historical systemic racism, injustice in the workplace, in the hood, everywhere we go. It seemed like there's an attack. And there is, throughout this pandemic, a lot of free time too given to our youth. And I want to hear from Clint. What are some ways that we can utilize this free time to become the version 2.0 of ourselves?
Yeah, Mr. Singleton, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought up that point and you hit on free time. I was raised in a household where I was told that an idle mind is the devil's playground. So I try to use the time that's afforded to me to the best of my ability. And there were things that I had to bump my head along the way, and get to know and get to learn on my own, because I'm the oldest of four. I didn't have a big brother or a big sister that went to college before me. I was the first in my family to go off to college and get to know things and learn how do I make a schedule and what a regimen is and all of those things. And when working with high schoolers, you know, you see the interest, and I can say you see the interest and the want to do things, but the know-how is not always there, and it's the small tips and tricks that they ask. And so one of the main things that I noticed this year we talked with our boys about in Champs was just getting organized. I think that's number one. That's key, right? Order, especially now in today's society. You know, you have to be prepared. You have to stay ahead of the game, literally 2 and 3 moves ahead of the game, as if you're playing chess. And that's in all aspects of it. You're talking about school, if you're in school, or if you're dealing with work. Make sure you cross your T's and you dot your I's. But number one is getting organized, and then having a plan. What are your goals? If you have goals that you want achieved or needed to achieve from last semester or last year, last summer, what are some of those things? If you have a skill or something that you can get better at doing, right now is the perfect time. You have the internet to your to your freedom. You have YouTube. There's things like Skillshare where you can actually go and hone your skills as to what it is that you want to do. So that's one of those and other things that brings me to my next point is getting to know yourself. You have to get to know yourself during this time. There's nothing wrong sitting down and being alone and being to yourself. That's something that I think college did for me, and I was happy that happened, because I was able to figure out what it is that I really liked about myself, what were my interests, what were the things that made me tick, what organizations I liked and why I liked those organizations, what missions were, you know, why I stand for something. These are the things that you kind of learn when you're in solace and when you're in solitude. And I think that's one of the benefits that the pandemic has afforded us is solitude. And so get to know yourself during this time. Read books intentionally. And the reason I say that was because, once again, I was in high school before, and I only read books because someone told me to do it. You know, it wasn't me taking it. It wasn't me taking my own initiative to get to know what it is I was even interested in reading until I got to college. And you know, I wish I had done that before, because I noticed folks were light years ahead of me when it came to certain things. But you know, you reach one, teach one, and so the folks that didn't go off to college, and a lot of our young boys are just not going to go to college. Mr. Singleton, you've seen data, and I've seen data that shows that not all of our boys go off to college and are successful. And so instilling these things at an early age, I think, is very, very important. Also, seek out a mentor. Before we go to mentor, just taking it back to reading books. At one point, it was illegal for blacks to read books, and we were also considered 3/5 human. You know, so me knowing these things, right, and having that background, I heard the saying before: if you want to leave something from a black man, have something from him, put it in a book. What? That means I'm gonna read every book I get my hands on at this point, and I'm gonna seek that knowledge intentionally, because obviously that's what's necessary. My next point is just seek a mentor. Everyone needs guidance. I have mentors. What I notice is that my mentors, they have 2 or 3 or 4 mentors themselves. It's nothing wrong with talking to somebody and seeking out someone. Just ask, is this the right thing? Ask for guidance. Don't be ashamed to do it. Don't be too prideful to do it, because I was a young, prideful black boy as well, and it was no reason for me to be, because the knowledge is out there. And then lastly, while we're in the midst of our families, take care of your family, take care of your community, your immediate community. Get to know what's happening around. Get to know the elders that live on your block. Help them out with things. Get to know what issues it is that they're dealing with. It'll come back to you tenfold, but don't do it because it'll come back to you. Do it out of the kindness of your heart. And so, Mr. Singleton, once again, I appreciate you. That was a great question. These are the things that I think about, and we talk with our boys about on a day-to-day when we're at school at Gary Comer College Prep.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate the space that you provide us to do that. So thank you.
No, thank you. That was wonderful. This time of solitude, it's important to be intentional about your mental well-being, and you have to take control of that. And so I actually want to go to Aubrey Davis, who is a young man who's graduating from high school, and I've been knowing him since he was at the Gary Comer Middle School. And so to see him again get ready to go off to college. And so, Aubrey, if you can just share with everybody just your experience, the good, bad, and ugly about growing up on the south side of Chicago, and what's some of the life lessons you've learned.
Growing up on the south side of Chicago, it was a challenge because I really couldn't see my vision. Because coming out of it, I had a 1.5 GPA, and I was kind of, what should I do? Like, am I going to high school? And then, like in Chicago, you see people just sitting on the streets and stuff. Dang, like, you think growing up, see that, and you think it's okay. Like, in my opinion, I feel like black people, they are the most people in the world. Also, like me, I never had to go to college, and when I first came to Gary, it was really like forceful for me to go to college because I was seeing like the graduating class when I first came into class, freshman year class. I think that was class of 2017. Like I was seeing so many people like go to college from Gary Coleman, and that just motivated me. Like I really have a purpose in this. I should really get my education serious and want to go to college. So then going into my sophomore year, like I really wanted to like bring my GPA up. So my sophomore year, I ended up with a 3.5 GPA, and that just boosted my confidence, and that made me feel like I should be able to go to college on a full scholarship. So then junior year, it was kind of challenging to me because I was like overthinking, like because like the SAT, I was kind of thinking like it was gonna end my hopes of going to college because I was thinking the score was really gonna matter, but I ended up getting 1,000, and I got accepted into 25 plus colleges, and I was
25.
really satisfied with that. What you say?
I said 25. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And also, like, what made me think about it is when we were in the Champs mentoring class, you always said like the graveyard is the richest place in the world. And that really like sparked my mind because if you think about it, it's a lot of people in the black community, it's a lot of people that get shot and go end up in the graveyard. And so many people like have bright careers. And that's why it's the richest place because I feel like if it wasn't we should have multiple Black presidents instead of just one. So yeah.
Hey, I really appreciate you. I want to tell you that you are going to reach every dream and goal that you have. You have a support system in us. And just remember, the same thing that you learn, man, you need to come on back and give it back. Speaking of which, I want to get Brother Corey on, and he runs a powerful mentoring organization, the Hope Dealers. And I want him to get on and just share in practicality the importance of mentorship and why is it important for Black men to step up and start mentoring our young boys like Aubrey Davis. And what's some of your strategies that you use, Brother Corey?
Brother Singleton, thank you again. And Aubrey, first of all, congratulations on being admitted and accepted into 25 schools. So that's the professional work that I do around college and careers and things like that. But on the subject matter of why Black men should mentor Black boys, it's simply the question really answers itself, because the importance of mentorship is the reason why I am here, Vondell, and the rest of us. In some capacity, we had a mentor, even if that person did not know they were your mentor. So sometimes we look at life as of like you by the hip of somebody and they walking you down this way, this pathway, but mentorship can be directly and indirectly. And I speak of that on the reason why I founded Hope Dealers Incorporated, because my father was indirectly my mentor. A man that was sentenced to 15 years in the federal penitentiary simply because he did not have a mentor to guide him and say, this is the positive way of how you can take care of your family. This is the positive way how you can make money. Instead, he had the streets who raised him and said, man, if you sell this, I got your back. And a lot of times when I'm sitting in meetings and I'm talking about big meetings at district offices and people trying to understand why, the why is simply because some of our young men feel way more protected on the streets than they do in the hallways of our school. And not to ruff any feather, but really to ruff the feathers, but just thinking about the money, the investment of the money that's spent on school resource officers recently, of the $33 million invested into school resource officers. I really feel that $33 million invested into programs such as Champs, such as other mentoring programs that really impacts and get into the lives of young Black men, particularly because they know the challenges that are going on. And before I conclude, I just want to share why it's very important. And I want to use a personal story. So when I was a college counselor at Paul Robeson High School, which is now the new Inglewood High School in Inglewood on 69th Street and 69th and Normal, this young man, he was in his junior year. I was working there. His name is Javante Campbell Curtis. And this young man, he was, he didn't really have guidance. So he was awarded a state. He really didn't know which pathway to choose. And one day we were sitting in the office. We had took them on a college tour. He was now a senior. We took them on a college tour to Benedict University, a couple of HBCUs. And a friend of mine who was working there with me at the time, her name is Miss Carnes, and she was like, Corey, Javante really look up to you. Like, you should really mentor him. And I went a step further. At first I was like, these kids not that far in age than I am. They really not gonna listen. But it's really the thought of them not listening is when they really listening. So with that being said, I took Javante under my wing and became pretty much his father figure. We only 6 years apart. Becoming his father figure really led into some great things. Javante went from a young man who was at a school that had a lot of challenging problems, but they were complex, and the Board of Education didn't understand the complexity of what was going on at Paul Robeson High School. But to really see that intentional mentoring really makes the impact. By taking a young man under my wing, he graduated with honors from Robeson, got accepted to Mississippi Valley State University, went to Mississippi Valley State University on a DCFS scholarship that a lot of kids not even aware that they can receive. So he pretty much went to Mississippi Valley for free. Javante made it all the way up to his senior year, pledged Omega Psi Phi. And it was this past September that he was really engaged and really ready. Like, Pops, I'm finna have this 3.5. So Javante, as a young man, I took him into my home, so he was living with me. So every time he came home, he lived here. So here we are 4 years later. He's getting ready to graduate, and really to see the impact of that mentorship mattered the most. And unfortunately, I lost Javante September 29th. He went on a road trip with his Lamb brothers. He was a member of Omega Psi Phi, something he wanted to do so dearly, and that also gave an investment into him, as well as mentorship from other Black men who was a part of that fraternal bond. And he like, Pops, I'm glad I didn't join the gang, but I joined a brotherhood that really pushed and motivated me. So the impact of mentoring these young people really matters. And when you think they're not listening, they're listening the most. So this work is really my calling now that Javante has went on home, because I personally feel that God allowed him to go through what he went through, and is even deeper about his story, but he allows him to experience what he experienced to only take him on a journey where he fulfilled his purpose. So our duty is called to mentor young men and empower them to be the best that they will and can be.
Hey, that's so powerful, brother. And I really appreciate what you do in the city of Chicago and this community, and just your allegiance to Morehouse. You wear it proudly, and we just so glad that you're in the city. Hey, listen, everybody, if you're watching or you're tuning in and you're running a foundation or you're an investor, invest in mentorship. That is one of the keys, I believe, that will change all of the things that we're dealing with. Is when we have the resources to do the great work of mentorship, to hear stories like that, to hear Javante say, man, I'm so glad I did not join a gang. I'm so glad that I went to college. But that was because Corey intercepted and stepped in, and he became a bridge so this young man can walk over and have that opportunity. So I appreciate you, and we're going to keep this conversation going. We got Dr. Marlon Haywood, who runs Urban Male Network, and I just want you to just kind of share, along with what Corey just shared, some solutions, some stories, some tips, some celebrations that you have doing the great work that you've been doing with Urban Male Network.
Yeah, so I'm come from the south side of Chicago, the Inglewood area. Growing up, I saw the women in my family being successful a lot of times, and it was really when I got to college that I got connected with a lot of men who kind of helped guide me. And there's one thing about how a mentor kind of impacted my life and then encouraged me to kind of really start and do the work that I do now, Urban Male Network. It was when I first started actually at Malcolm X College. And then I noticed that they had me working with the GED program. I noticed that young men were not at the same rate as the young ladies. And so I asked the question, can I start a group during the young men? And they allowed me to start how Urban Male Initiative came about to then turn into Urban Male Network to be a nonprofit. In working within Malcolm X, I got connected by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Dotson. He was my direct supervisor, who was a Black man. And then he said, you know what? I see so much for you. I see you going further. And if you're going to really do the work that you're doing with the mentorship, if you're going to really do the motivational speaking and make that impact, you need to become Dr. Haywood. And I said, I don't really know about it. But he said, no, you can definitely do it. And then he also said, hey, have you ever thought about working for Rush University Medical Center? I said, he mentioned a position. I said, I'm not qualified for that position. He said, I didn't ask you all of that. I just asked were you interested. So then I said, I'm interested. And he sent me the position title. It was a research fellowship for 3 years. And they wanted you to have all this extensive experience in doing research on health disparities, They wanted you to have at least a PhD. I did not have it at the time. And so he said, you know what, brother, it doesn't matter if you don't have all of that. I'm going to prepare you and I'm going to work with you to prepare you for the interview. So for weeks, he gave me all these books on health disparities that I need to start dressing better and wearing nothing but suits when I come to work. So one, I was upset because I'm like, don't nobody else wear suits. Why is you making me wear suits to work? So I started wearing suits. He said I had to change the bags that I was carrying because I was carrying like a book bag. He said, no, brother, you need to start carrying more professional bag. So I had to start getting a professional bag and carrying it to work. And then again, I was meeting with him once a week. He was giving me all these articles on these books to read to prepare for the position that I was getting ready to interview for. So he was telling me what not to say, how to say it. And then he would ask me questions based on the books and the articles that he was giving me. So here it is that I now get to the interview. I make it all the way to the final round. This is the very interesting story here, is that they say you did very well, but the final decision is not up to us for this position. I said, well, who was the final decision up to? They said Dr. Dawson. Dr. Dawson was the man who had been preparing me for the position all along. And literally, he was the one that made the final decision to see if I get the position or not. But he never told me that. He wanted to see my determination, my will, and if I was going to put in the work to do what needed to be done. And I told him, I said, I never felt that I was qualified. He said, I saw that you was qualified, but I just wanted to see if you was willing to make the necessary work to make it happen. So I get to Rush, and then I do this fellowship. I exceed, I do well. And then from there, he said, it's time for you to become Dr. Haywood. So then from there, he literally was the one that wrote my letter of recommendation for Roosevelt University for me to get in. He knew the dean of the program. And then he said, look, I talked to this woman over here. They're ready to let you in. I wrote your letter of recommendation. As a matter of fact, it would be paid for you to go because Rush actually pays for your full tuition reimbursement. So he says, you have no excuse but to go forth and do it. And so here it is that this man helped me get to Rush University Medical Center, helped me get my doctoral degree, a Black man, to help pull me up where I needed to get to. And then he even helped even get to starting my nonprofit because he started to tell me about the work that I need to start doing with Black men and helping them. So here it is that he helped me, the brothers that was now at Malcolm X working on their associate's degree. I got one brother by the name of Moses, Robert Moses. He's now just completed his master's degree, started with me working on his associate's degree at Malcolm X. And then said, now because you have your doctorate, I want to become Dr. Moses just like you. And then there's like 3 other guys, right, that started at Malcolm X with their associate's degrees. One guy was locked up for 5 years for armed robbery, got his master's degrees, graduated with a 4.0 from UIC, started in a program with me at Malcolm X. And it all started because Dr. Dotson helped me to achieve my goals and be what I needed to be. And then in turn, I did the same thing and helped other Black brothers. And then now they've been doing the same thing. So what I'm saying is that it's about reaching back and then grabbing the next person and then continuing that cycle, right? So we can keep pulling each other up. I saw somebody comment and say, like on the Facebook post, is that, man, we keep doing all of this talking, but what about the impact? This is the impact, right? This is the work. Because when you are helping other brothers, you are helping that next brother become the judge, the lawyer, the prosecutor, the educator, right? That person who is the person, operating on somebody on the table. So when you help brothers, Black brothers and Black women get into positions, you're now changing the narrative and you're putting the people in place that need to be there to make the right things happen in the world for our people. So that's all I wanted to say about my thoughts on the impact of mentorship and then how we can help others just by keeping that cycle going.
Yeah, Ms. Brown said, look at God. I agree. Hey, man, I just want to say this is the reason why we're using this platform in a way, because you don't hear these narratives in our media. And so what happens is you start to think that Black is criminal. Blacks are savages. Blacks in Chicago are thugs and gang members. That's all you hear and see. But you just heard a powerful transformational story about how somebody intervened and saw something in Dr. Marlon Haywood. Now I got to call him doctor because he put the work in and the time in. And so there is a power in what we're saying. There are some real tangible, powerful things that are happening that you don't always hear about, that this platform is to show you that it's happening. And notice what he started with. I'm from Inglewood. And most people that hear about Inglewood automatically associate gangs, guns, violence. But he just said Inglewood. And now he ended with doctor. Come on, somebody. I'm going to just pause right there because I got to bring some panelists in. But thank you, Dr. Marlon. We really appreciate everything that you're doing to give back, and all of the other young people that are being impacted. I want to go to Facebook. There's a question on Facebook. Do you all feel what's happening is no real way of dealing with this? From Kelly Watkins. Anybody can jump in. Just raise your hand if you want to jump in and answer. If Doc, you have any thoughts on that. Dr. Marlon.
Say it again. The sound had went out on me, the last part.
Do you all feel that what's happening, there's like no real solution or real way of dealing with what we presently dealing with? What are some solutions to these modern day lynchings, what I'm calling them? What are your thoughts on it?
I think that there definitely are solutions that can take place and happen. I think definitely the protest has to happen, because if protest doesn't happen, then people do not take us seriously when it comes to issues like this taking place right now in our world. As I stated earlier, I think it's so important that we start to really, now we got to make sure we get out there and vote. And I'm not talking about voting for the president, but we need to come to the judge, put it on the bench, who are making the decisions when it comes to prosecution or people who are prosecuting that are killing Black people, right? That's so important. If you think about it, they don't voting for the judge. I think the next thing solution is also really challenging our legislators and then asking them to say, what are you doing to make sure that you're putting forth, that you're really paying attention to what's happening, that this don't happen. I'm tired of the happen. Like, conversation is good, but at the same time, it's going to take our political leaders, it's going to take the community activists, it's going to have us coming together about really putting forth change. And then we're going to have to start integrating that white culture, because like we need them as well. Like we need the white allies, we need the Hispanic allies, we need everybody at the table. It's just not a Black issue. Everybody issue. And when everybody feel that it's all of our issue, then I believe that's when we can start making change.
Thank you so much for that. And I want to go to my brother from New Orleans, my old roommate, David MAGEE, and just, man, ask you, what do you think? How do we start to really move forward collectively to really heal our nation and bring some resolve to what we're seeing? People are frustrated. You got young brothers who are like, man, I'm ready to go and do the eye for eye, tooth for tooth thing if things don't change fast. So can you just help us out and provide, your thoughts around solutions and healing for our nation?
Yes, man. First, I love all the information that we're getting. This is great stuff. Dr. Marlon's story was phenomenal. I've dedicated my life to mentoring, or a large portion of it, if you will. And it just inspires me to continue to do the work. And I would also say, when we talk about, how some of the emotions and feelings and things that people not just feel, but have experienced, they're real. But I would like to encourage them to let them know this isn't our first rodeo. We overcame this before. We've done this before, and we've made progress. And I don't want us to negate the progress that we've already made, because sometimes we get caught up in the moment and we see things in a vacuum and we think this isn't going to change, but things have changed. We have made progress, and we need to pick up the flag and continue to carry it on. And one of the things I was thinking about, Dr. Marlon just said, this isn't everybody. I heard reference made to Dr. Martin Luther King. I found myself dealing with my uncle who's been in jail for something he said he didn't do for over 50 years. And I found myself getting angry, physically angry at people that I thought were responsible. And what I realized, I went to church one Sunday and my pastor was drilling in, and he said one thing that stood out. He said, let love be without hypocrisy. And I was pointing the finger saying, well, they did it and they wrong. And you know what I heard the Lord say to me? So they did it. The old saying, two wrongs make a right. So you're going to be like them? If I'm going to call myself a believer, if I'm going to call myself a Christian, if I'm going to call myself someone who's a real lover of humanity, not just Black people, then I can't just be a person who just stands for justice when it's only my end. If it's me, we did something wrong, we did something wrong. But here's what I would say.
to young people and to our adults also. I've heard the term that we're in a war. And in a war, there are casualties. People die, right? But here's what the Lord said to me the other night. Well, this morning when I was listening. In a war, I will be a warrior, but I will not become a murderer. I have a license to be aggressive and attack and to use this emotion to do something productive, but I'm not going to turn into the thing that I hate. Rhymefest said in 2018, when I came to one of your meetings, he said, we must resist the temptation of becoming the injustices and the prejudices that were used against us. I fight with everything in me, not to allow the anger and the hurt that I feel about some of the things that I see cause me to become that. I'm gonna be 100% with you. There are things that we say to our children around people we love and care about at our tables that are perpetuating prejudices. And we'll never get past it if we pass it on to the next generation. If we say, man, them people something. And I'm gonna tell you something else that I'm putting into my son. There isn't a man, I don't care what color he is, that could stop my son from doing anything that God has placed in him to do. I don't want to get too preachy, but that's what my faith is built on. If God
your
be
wife
for
just
us,
said preach.
Then who can be against us? I'll end it with this. Our Pledge of Allegiance, which is for all Americans. When we say this Pledge of Allegiance, it says, one nation under God. We fought for civil rights for a long time, fought, bled, and died for it. But what we should also be fighting for, in my personal opinion, in my belief, is that when we become one nation under God, then we become indivisible. Then we have liberty and justice for all. But up until that point, man without God is barbaric. And we are capable of some evil things, even to each other. So we have to unify our voice, get behind a cause, and show our other people on the other side what it is that we're going through, invite them to the table. And I'm just going to be honest, we are resilient, powerful, innovative people. And we are some of the most forgiving people in America. I can't speak for nowhere else. But we were able to forgive all the things that have been done to us and move on. We can't turn into murderers and turn into bandits and barbarians. We are civilized people. I'll give you a story real quick. I was at ORU and a white guy in the parking lot. I was working in the parking lot, called me the N-word. I lost it. I tried to pull him out the car and I wanted to physically fight him. After I calmed down, I heard him crack the window and he said to the people in the back of the van, see, look at him acting like a monkey. After that day, I said to myself, I will never give anybody that power over me again. I won't let anybody push my buttons. I want us to continue to harness our potential, harness our energy, harness all of this anger that we feel in emotion and get strategic. Become one voice all over the internet. And saying the same thing, trusting our leaders and holding our people accountable who are at the forefront fighting this fight. That's it, brother.
Hey, we'll give you your offering later. My man just preached a sermon. We appreciate you, brother. I want to bring in Olu, who was a student from Gary Comer College Prep, graduated, went to Stanford University, a place I visited in 1998. And he has a very powerful story. And I just want you to just kind of share a little bit with everybody your story.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Singleton. First of all, I just want to say, like, I'm just so excited to be with like all these brothers. Like, y'all story, I'm just simply amazed and simply astounded. And I just have so much to go because I'm trying to follow like y'all. So before I actually like just talk a bit more about myself and actually answer your story, so Champs started I think on my senior year because I'm an alum of Gary Comer, and one of my biggest regret was like being away because like being at school was just seeing so much how this program is just blowing up, the impact you're doing, and like how it's actually changing lives is just a beautiful story. So just thank you so much for having me here with all these brothers. Y'all rock. But to answer your question, so I think my journey has been very difficult. So coming to Stanford, I didn't know I would be at Stanford. In fact, like I about the school to like 2 months before like the start of my senior year, right? But as a kid, I've always been like ambitious, motivated. In the 5th grade, I always told myself like I'm gonna go to Harvard, though I didn't apply, But that kept me grounded, kept me motivated, especially growing up on the east side of Chicago, like seeing so many of the things that I saw, losing so many friends, like not even having my first textbook till like freshman year, like when I went to Comer, just stuff like that. Those like little stuff, they they kind of add up over like the long range of time. And, and then being at Stanford, study mechanical engineering, like, it's been also really hard because, I look around, I see like 2 other Black folks, right? And I'm like expected to like, compete, being first gen and low income, like there's so many times I just tell myself, man, like, I don't want to do this. I should just quit. But, I think one thing I really want to like reiterate to answer the previous questions, like, like what work do we do? Just like, get a mentor. Like for me, I got a mentor during my freshman year, goes by the name of Mr. Chris Cameron. And seeing someone who looked like me, who had a very similar background, just like motivated me to the point like, I was like, yeah, I have confidence in myself that I can not only graduate, doing ME at Stanford, but also like, one day get my PhD. We'll see, right? But like just having the idea of the next step of like, what do I want to do, and just working towards that, like that seed was planted by my mentor. So I really feel like having mentorship and going back to what Mr. Brother Clinton was talking about, like organizing, like that's how we make progress. Even for me, like I haven't watched a video in Minneapolis, I haven't like watched a video and like what happened in Georgia, just because like, again, this is my reality. This is thing I see on a daily day. I don't want it to bog me down. I need something like I want to work for, like, I need a goal. I got to be ambitious, stuff like that. And just like, and I kind of feel like when we talk about Blackness, like humanity is often discredited. Like, oh, we can be people. Like, we can be motivated. We can be determined. We can get angry. We can like show love. Like, we just put on this like low bar. And I kind of feel like even watching like the last week's session, and I was just like, humanity, that's an aspect that's also always forgotten, that we are human. Like, there are traumas I didn't start dealing with till like this year, that from the things I saw 8, 12 years ago, you feel, just stuff like that. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Olu. And Scott Stewart just said, my spirit is so hurt. And, it is a process that we're in. And I think having these conversations, going back to what David just mentioned, using this emotion to be strategic. See, they don't want us to be strategic. They want us to act out and then justify. See, they monkeys. And we cannot lose this moment. The whole world are talking about who? Black men. It's a reason why we are the most resilient people on the planet. We've endured so much. Our people, our Black women, our queens, our mothers, right? And I feel like, at this particular point in time, like I said, to begin with, this is a very heavy conversation, but it's necessary. It is necessary. And we have to figure out a way to unify ourselves, because I believe we also have an innate power to heal ourselves. We looking for healing and answers from the government, from the church. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but I will say in this community, there is a healing that's already taken place, because we're able to sit down and talk and say, you know what, man, I feel upset. I feel angry. I feel hurt. But then when we hear Olu or Aubrey or Corey or Dr. Marlon share, or Dr. Cartman share, these are some things that we can do. Now we adding in different perspectives and different voices. I want to go to my brother from Milwaukee, Shannon. Can you just kind of share some of the impacts and a wonderful work that you're doing in the Milwaukee area?
So, I mean, I'm hopeful right now. And I was taking notes. So, I took some notes from all you brothers. So I appreciate the work. And so, some of the things I think about when I'm talking about mental health, what I want to say is I hope that every brother on this call is taking the time out to also decongest and take some space back, take a step back for you to move forward. What I always say to my mentees is that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so in order for us to try to make sure that we're doing all the work that we can, we also have to take a few minutes for ourselves. And so I'm in therapy. I don't know if you all are, but I am in therapy. And I am in therapy specifically because the work that I see, the work that I do, the work that I'm trying to build is important, but it's also important that I'm doing it from a space that I have space. I can't keep going into my community trying to give if I'm not giving to myself. And I think that's the important piece of when we talk about the ability to even have a mentor, right? I think I think it was Dr. Marlin who said, a mentor can look like, and I think people miss that when you're mentoring someone, you don't have to call it mentoring. It can be called many things. And so we have to make sure that we're able to be able to see how we can evolve in this process. And so when I hear a lot of folks talking about, so asking me, so what are the solutions? I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not gonna write a prescription for white folks to help us understand what's occurring and happening. You all deal with that. I want to deal with Black and brown folks who need me right now in this space to understand that it's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to be affirmed. It's okay for you to need the space that you need. And it's also okay for you to say the words that you need to say. And I think until we get that space and until we are able to see how we can grow in that, it is important for us Black men right now that we take the time to get what we need, because there's so much that's being taken away from each of us every day. Seeing what's happening in our media, is just, it's the way that it's portrayed and the way that they talk about how Black folks are, that is not who we are. We are great people. We come from great, we are what everybody wants to be, whether it's fashion, whether it's music, they want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. And so I say to everyone who's listening that every time we think about who we are, know that we are kings and queens and we sit in seats of greatness. I am not sitting in my seat today because of who I am. It's because what came before me. And I never forget that for every seat I sit in. Walk in these walls. And as you walk into the corporate wall, remember when you're sitting, you're great. You're beautiful. You're important. And that is what's going to talk about solutions. My solution right now is every Black person who is listening right now, we need to connect, we need to have conversation, and we need to have action.
Wow. What a sobering message. I want to thank all of the brothers who took the time to on tonight. I hope that it sparked something within your spirit and within your soul. Again, everybody talking about Black men, and here's an opportunity for us to heal, right? And it's a process. It's going to take a long time for that to happen, but it's also an opportunity for our white allies to learn, right? Don't come in with judgments and talk through the Black experience. It's hard to explain the trauma and the constant trauma, because something happens and then you never heal from the last thing that happened. Then something else happened again and something else happened again. And then you're connected to families and you have to explain this to your children. You have to explain this to your community, the people that you serve, work with, and love. But there are solutions in our gathering in spaces like this. And so I'm so glad that you tuned in. I do want to say, share this with somebody. Maybe they didn't join in live, but maybe they'll go back and rewatch. We've had over a couple thousand rewatches over the past couple weeks. And so my expectation is that you will bring your sons, your fathers, Black, white, rich, poor, Protestant, Catholic. It does not matter. Again, we are all in this problem together. And so if we really want to do some major work around what we're seeing, we have to begin to figure this thing out. And again, we're not saying that we have all of the answers, but we want to start talking about some things that we know are working that you probably don't know. And the last thing that I want to say, and I want to give a shout out to Olu, we're human. We're not animals. We're not criminals. We're human beings. And God made us, and we are beautiful. So to all my brothers out there, I love you all. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we will not stop. We will continue to use our voice to bring about healing to our community and to bring about change. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I want you to have a great evening.
Every setback is a setup for greatness. Every failure is a ladder towards greatness. Every goal is applied towards my greatness. Every life experience enhances my greatness. Every task perfects my greatness. The divine guides my greatness. I am greatness in the making.
As a member of Champs, I will conduct myself in a positive manner and with integrity. To achieve all my goals to the best of my ability.